What's up YouTube, Mohin Fiaznan is here, and today I'm going to talk about how I, at the age of 23, bought an apartment, moved out, and pretty much just had to pay a bond, worked a job, and just the full experience. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly the process I went through just to get the apartment, what it was like living there for 3 years, what I learned, etc., and what I'm doing going forward, whether I thought it was a good idea and what the actions are in the future. So first things first, I got my first job in 2020, and it was a graduate role in an IT company. They were really pushing me to go into more business analytics, so like Power BI, business intelligence analytics. So I was getting pushed into the whole Power BI space, and basically I was going to end up producing reports as my job. At the time, I was sold the story of data science being the sexiest job, data science being like the most growing field, the fact that it was going to be this massive field that was just going to generate ridiculous money for anyone in it. And that's what I was trying to end up being. That's where I was trying to end up being. So I was working the job, and then in my spare time learning how to do this, then networking with people, and I had to reach in and around the company to find out, to find some kind of mentor to teach me the skills that I needed to be taught. Because it's one thing to try and learn yourself, but having a mentor will actually speed up your journey, because you'll have someone to answer to, you'll have someone to be accountable towards, and they can just share things with you that they learned along the journey to speed it up. So that's what I did, and within that year, someone had mentioned to me about properties, because someone in their family had been renting out properties and using that to create income. Now, for me, I didn't have massive experience to that before this, so I had to seriously look around, and it really opened my eyes. So what started off as, oh wow, okay, I didn't even think about it, but I'm at that age where I can look at a property. And then, I'd already gone through the process of setting a budget and trying to save money and trying to build a certain amount of financial income for myself that I was saving. So not just the income coming in, but also saving it. So in that process, I'd gotten into the habit of saving 10,000 Rand, which was, so divided by 20 is the dollar amount. So about $500 was what I was saving each time. And that was well over 50% of what I was taking home. So obviously I had very, very, very little expenses, but I used that opportunity to save as much as I can. That was actually nothing, because there was people that I was working with who basically saved their whole paycheck for a whole year and just sat on those funds. So I mean, if I could go back, I would try and do my best, but the money did help. Where I did use it, it expanded me, it gave me life experience, etc. So fast forward 9 months in, I've been looking at these properties, and I take it a step further. Well, actually, my mother pushes me to take it a step further, and she says, you're looking at these properties, why don't you go actually have a look at it? Look at it in person, you're just looking online. So I looked at it, I figured out a budget, and then she and I went and looked at a few, and there was one that I really wanted to look at. And what really sped up my journey is I saw it, and as soon as I tried to call in, it was sold. So I missed out on the complete opportunity to actually view this entire property. Now, if looking back, would I have bought it? Not exactly. I think it was a little bit higher in my budget. It would have been 2 bedrooms as opposed to 1, which I'll talk about later why I think that's not the best route. But essentially, yeah, so I looked around, I found the one that worked. We looked around, we found another one in that same building, and that one in the same building was much, much cheaper, but it was more of a fixer-upper. So I had to figure out what am I gonna do here? The lady was a bit like pushy with the property, but obviously it was like her first sale, so she was trying to learn how to like gauge herself. And yeah, it was a beautiful moment. It was something that I learned a lot. I learned about negotiation. I learned about a bunch of things. So in actually getting the property, there was some negotiations being done, and I didn't know the full equation of what was going on, but I was negotiating to essentially get it like lower. Obviously had some help from my parents. My dad mentioned to me, no, just try and negotiate lower for this thing. You can, because there's like, it's a fixer upper, there's these like issues, you can use that as fuel. So what we ended up doing is, because there was some damages to the outside balcony, damages inside the house, because of that we negotiated the price lower, and we got a very, very, very good deal considering what they were asking for versus what we actually ended up getting. And in that negotiation, a lot of it happened through the agent and through phone calls. We eventually closed out the deal, and this was about the end of the year. And around that time I was changing jobs, so I was changing from one grad to another grad program, so it was a massive change going on. And they were saying like, don't do that, because essentially I didn't have a permanent role, and then the role I was taking on was a permanent role. So it was a whole like stressful situation, because I was worried if I was even gonna like be allowed to keep this bond, or if they were gonna make an issue. So basically did that, and it took forever. And the worst thing is, if you're trying to get an apartment or get a house or bond during December time, especially in South Africa, there is nothing that is going to help you, because they like, it's already hard to get things done in this country, but as time goes on, when you get to December, everyone's wrapping up their work and then they close. Once they close, it's a slow start to get everything back on track. Your other things are getting added to the pile, and you have to work through all of that. So that was a whole schlep, but essentially made it through that. Eventually, fast forward, moved in about March time. And I mean, in my headspace, I was always looking for an investment property, but this ended up being something where, like, you know, during COVID, I was like, actually, I want to move out. I want to experience that. So that's what happened. And I moved out, I expanded, I went through the whole nesting process. I like decorated, bought frames and stuff, hung up posters. And I really experienced like a freedom to me that was completely unknown, other than like maybe camps. But yeah, I truly felt what it felt to be like in a space on your own, to have your own space, and the power that can give you in creating your own, like in your creativity alone, but just in and around for your day-to-day life. So all of that was completely helpful. If you have the opportunity, I would say go ahead, do that now. Like, if you I didn't have the opportunity during university, so if you didn't have that opportunity, you should go out. You should have this time for yourself. You should put yourself in a brand new location and develop a space for yourself. Now, let's get into the 3 years that I moved in, had a housewarming, invited people over. That slowly slowed down, because the first like housewarming, like a bunch of people dropped a lot of shit. They messed up my remote. But I mean, it's part of it. You're hosting people. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, and then slowly I fluctuated throughout that time. Obviously, like, grew my position in the company that I was working at, got better and better, started saving towards paying it off very quickly, which was always the plan. And then obviously, as life comes, there's ebbs and flows, there's setbacks. So I did fall back on some of those goals. I had to pull out of some of the money that I was putting in to pay it off. And it was tough. It was all a mental game. I figured out new things. I was like challenging myself with new habits and stuff. And yeah.